Hi, everyone. We're going to get going here, so I just want to make sure everyone can hear me before I turn it over to Allison. So thank you for coming tonight. My name is Douglas Ogier. I chair the groundwater committee. I'm going to introduce Cynthia soon, and she's going to then introduce Allison, and then we'll get going. We are technically in a meeting as well, just because of the committee. So we're just opening that meeting, but we're going to pass it off now to Cynthia. And again, thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy.
Welcome, everybody. We're really excited that you're here, and we really appreciate you showing up. We wouldn't have the excellent workshop we're having if you weren't here, so thank you for coming. My name is Cynthia Roberts, and as DJ said, I'm on the Groundwater Protection Committee with DJ and Carol, and we also had a planning committee that Marie Ann joined too, so the four of us planned this along with the Groundwater Committee, and we're really excited to welcome Allison. We also just wanted to give a couple plugs. So on your seats are handouts. One of the handouts is 36 questions for civic love. So if we have a little break, maybe at 7:30 in between the presentation and questions, talk to the person next to you and maybe ask them one of the questions on there, get to know someone from the town. The other one is we have some questions in the back that we'd love for you to interact with. We want to know, do you know where your water comes from? And also, what do you know about drinking water in North Smithfield? And there's some post-it notes, so if you are up and about and you want to answer those questions. So those are a couple of things. Can I mention about the groundwater protection? Yes. Yeah, and so the Groundwater Protection Committee has 2 vacancies. So we know that, and hi to everybody who's logging in. We're also live streaming tonight, and we've been told that quite a few people. Do you have a number, actually?
I have 7.
Oh, cool. So there's 7 more of us who are joining us virtually. So thanks, everyone. So everyone in this room has a common interest in water quality. And we have 2 vacancies on the Groundwater Protection Committee. So if you're interested in being a volunteer on that, you can talk to DJ while you're here tonight, and we'd love to have you join us if you're interested. And without further ado, it's our privilege to welcome Allison McCann tonight. She's the state's expert on testing well water in Rhode Island, and the Groundwater Protection Committee applied for a mini grant to help engage residents on water quality in our community. And as part of that grant, Allison, she'll tell you where she works and what she does, but she is her organization is giving this workshop in kind. And it was a lot of organizing to get her here and like all of the knowledge that she brings, so we're very grateful for that. And before I hand it off, I just wanted a sense of, for how people got here, like how you knew about it. Could you raise your hand if you saw it in the Valley Breeze? Okay, and could you raise your hand if you saw it in the town newsletter? Okay, and then could you raise your hand if you saw it on social media? And maybe some of the people logging in also saw it on social media. Did I forget anything? Yep. Okay, all right, so without further ado, welcome everyone. Again, thank you for being here, and thank you to Allison, and I'll turn it over.
Thanks very much. Is this good? Am I good? Okay, I gotta be double-fisted here. I have a microphone and a clicker to advance my slides. Good evening, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here and come up to North Smithfield, the part of the state I don't come to very often. I work out at the University of Rhode Island, where I work at the Kingston campus for the Cooperative Extension Program down at URI, and I've been providing education and technical assistance to Rhode Island private well owners for a number of decades. And in addition to me, my colleague Shannon Nakama, who's an environmental scientist at the Rhode Island Department of Health, is also a water quality, private well water expert. She works in the private well water program at the Rhode Island Department of Health. And just so you know, you have a copy of the slides in front of you, okay? You should have a copy of my slide presentation with an area to take notes if you're so inclined. And then this tip sheet, Are You a Smart Well Owner, is a nice summary of the next hour's presentation, okay? Okay, so I'm going to go through the presentation And if there's something I say that you don't understand and you need me to clarify it, please ask. Other than that, I'd like to keep questions to the portion of the program where we're going to do questions and answers. Okay, we have a whole hour scheduled for after the slide presentation for that. Oh, of course. Oh, the podium's working?
Good, yeah.
Oh, okay, great. I would prefer to use the podium, and then it's a little easier for me. Okay, terrific. So you have copies of the slides. I have copies of the slides. I want to thank the town of North Smithfield for inviting me to be up here and to present this information to you. Tonight we're going to talk about protecting, testing, and a little bit about treating private well water. I'm not going to get into depth about the different kinds of treatment technologies. If you have questions about a treatment system, I have tip sheets with me about different kinds of treatment systems, and I can help answer some specific questions, but I'm not going to go into depth about every kind of treatment technology, because one, I would put you to sleep and we'd be here for way too long, and we'd want to get up and just do a little socializing. And the information that I'm going to talk about tonight pertains to Rhode Island private well owners. Anybody live in a different state, like nearby Mass? No, okay, good, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't mean, it would just mean that, you know, the lead agency would not be the Rhode Island Department of Health. Okay, so groundwater is the source of our drinking water, okay? So groundwater, you know, let me just see, I have a pointer. Yep, starts as precipitation, right? Coming and falling onto the ground. That precipitation can run off into surface waters, ponds, lakes, rivers, streams. And then if it doesn't run off, some of it will move down through the soil profile where it can be taken up by plants and animals that live in, that you know, have their roots or live in the soil. And if it keeps going, it can infiltrate and recharge our groundwater system. I like to say, just like a battery, groundwater needs to be recharged. And we have had plenty of recharge happening this winter and spring season, right? I have an area in my driveway that's never flooded before, and it's flooded on both sides, and I have ducks swimming in these little ponds, okay? So that's how we do, and I'm sure you have stories like that too. We've had a lot of water, and so we have had a lot of recharge. It'll be interesting to see what the summer brings, right? Will it continue to be wet? Will it become a little bit more dry? Summer tends to be the time of season, the time of year where we have to, where it is more dry, and we do need to be a little bit more careful with water use and water quality, water quantity in our well water, okay? So we place our well down into the groundwater to supply water for our homes. There's some information at the Rhode Island Department of Health website, you have this on your handout, about what to do if the well runs dry. Private wells are installed in a couple of geologic formations in Rhode Island. One is wells are put into the sand and gravel. These wells tend to be shallower because the sand and gravel deposits, tend to they sit closer to the surface of the earth. These wells can be dug wells. I'll show you some pictures of wells in just a minute. Or they can be driven wells into the sands and gravels. It's just different kinds of technology to construct the well. And then wells can also be put deeper down into the bedrock, where they can be drilled or pounded, just two types of well development into the bedrock, okay? The well water quality is affected by a couple of different things. What we do in and around our own home. So how we use, store, and dispose of potentially hazardous chemicals. We all have chemicals, hazardous chemicals around our home. We probably have gasoline because we mow our lawn, right? Or we maybe have herbicides and pesticides and insecticides, you know, especially this time of year when things are active. Paint thinners, hobby chemicals, items like that. So the way that it's important that we use as needed. We store them so that they're not exposed to the weather and have any chance of like being impacted by rain or spills and getting into the ground and perhaps and potentially infiltrating into our well water, and how we dispose of household hazardous waste. On my ride up, it's been a few years since I drove by the Rhode Island Resource Recovery and the Rhode Island Eco Depot, and it's been a few years since I actually took a field trip from the town I live in up just to see the facility and what it was all about. But so properly disposing of potentially household hazardous waste is also an important action that we can take as well owners. So let's look at an example of how a particular land use common to most well owners, which is a septic system, can impact groundwater quality. Okay, so and I'm going to talk only about a conventional system as an example. I'm not going to get into the advanced treatment septic systems that are out there. But just a conventional system, which many well owners have. But though it consists of two parts, a conventional system. First, all of the wastewater in the house, you know, from flushing the toilet, taking a shower, washing the dishes, leaves the house, and all that water goes into a septic tank. And the process in the septic tank is for the solids to settle to the bottom, the greases and fats to float to the top. That's okay. Happens to all of us. I should have reminded us to put them out. Yeah. There you go. All set. And then a relatively clear zone of liquid settles to the middle of the tank. Okay? And it's that relatively clear section of liquid that then goes out into the drain field here, symbolized by this area here with the septic leachate moving down through the soil profile. And it's moving down through a dry layer of soil that's indicated by this slide. The gray area is dry soil. The wet area is groundwater, saturated materials, the groundwater area. And so as the leachate moves down through the soil profile, it's designed primarily to beat up on bacteria, okay? And to remove bacteria and to have the bacteria die. And our septic systems, like I said, are designed to recharge the groundwater system. So what we put down our sinks and flush down our toilets should only be typical household wastewater. We don't want to use it to get rid of hobby chemicals and paint thinners and things like that. Those kinds of things should be properly disposed of, as I mentioned, through a household hazardous waste collection day in a nearby community or by going to the Rhode Island Eco Depot. Well water protection, when we're thinking about that, it's important to learn about a couple of things. Where the well is on your property. How many of us know where our well is? Excellent. Sometimes people don't because it might be buried. And I've worked with a number of homeowners where the well head was not sticking up above the ground, and so they couldn't find it. You know, and so that can be an issue. What's going on around the well, in the immediate vicinity around the well? Oops, I'm sorry. What type of well you have, what kind of construction. Is it a dug well? Is it a drilled well? Is it a driven well? And what the water test results mean. That's important. Okay, I'm going to talk about each one of these in the following slides. I'm going to talk a little bit more. So where is the well located in the yard? Here's a picture that I grabbed. And I circled the well over here, in red. And just looking at what you see in this picture, sorry, I'd like to walk around and I have to stay by the microphone. What would you say? What are some red flags here? What types of things are happening in this yard that could potentially impact the drinking water well? Any ideas? Just call them out. Yeah.
Tree roots.
Tree roots. Yeah, good. Yeah, tree roots might impact the water quality, the well. Certainly could impact the construction.
Proximity to the road.
Proximity to the road. Okay, yep, good. Oh, that's nice, thank you. Yeah, that's good. You guys like that? All right, what else?
Lawn chemicals.
Yeah, maybe lawn chemicals. I mean, we have no idea, but maybe, right? I mean, so, anything else? Yeah, the vehicles, you'll just notice there's some, oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I'm lost in space over here. The vehicles, what's happening here, this one's up on blocks. Is there some maintenance being done on this vehicle? What kinds of, maintenance products are being used? How are they being stored? How are they being disposed of? Absolutely. So really good. That's, good eye spies there. And then we look at the neighborhood view. Like, this is the same property, the bird's eye view right here. So you can see it was in a cul-de-sac. It is in a cul-de-sac here. And then notice what's going on. It looks like a residential community, right? Just from this aerial photograph. But there's some expansion happening over here. Probably some more houses going in. Maybe this cul-de-sac will be a little busier road. Who knows if it will be sanded or salted in the wintertime, and those sorts of things. So just doing a little I Spy at your house, I'll give you a homework assignment at the end of the presentation, about going out to your well and standing there and looking at what's happening in and around your own well. Okay. Here are some minimum private well water setback distances from potential sources of contamination. Okay. So the well should be 50 feet from a sewer line. Not all areas that are serviced by wells are also serviced by septic systems. Some are on sewers. 25 feet from a road surface. 50 feet from the septic tank, and 100 feet from the septic drain field and animals, okay? And so these are setbacks. I know we all live in a home, and that, we may meet all of these setbacks, we may not meet these setbacks. Maybe the well couldn't be, both 25 feet from the road and 100 feet from the drain field, in which case, it's probably a little closer to the road than it is to the drain field. So there can be variances that are given, right? These are just, suggested setbacks, and to do the best that you can do on a property. And when I say animals, I show a picture of a horse here, but I know we all don't have horses, right? But many of us have dogs, and dogs go out into the yard, right? I worked with a homeowner once who had his well water tested for nitrates, which is a byproduct of human and animal waste, and his water was very high in nitrates. And so I was asking him questions, like what's happening around the well? Are you on a septic system? What else is happening? Do you have any pets? That kind of thing. So it turned out that in his yard, he had a fenced-in area where the dog went when the dog was outside. And also, guess what else was in the fenced-in area? The well was also in the fenced-in area. So it was right there, and the dog had access to the well, right there when it was outside, okay? So I suggested that he move the dog and let it clear out for a little while. And he actually did get back to me, and the nitrate issue over time cleared up for him so that it was non-detect in his well water. So just thinking about, you know, what's going on around your well. And so I'd like you, you know, to think about that. And maybe you already know the answers to these questions, but if you stand at your wellhead, you know, you can do this over the next few days if you'd like. Stand at your wellhead and just see what's out 25 feet. What is, what's in a radius of 25 feet? What's in a radius of 50 feet and 100 feet? And get an idea of, what's there, what could potentially be causing issues. The other thing that you could do would be to have an annual test done, a well water test, because the byproducts or the contaminants that come from these land uses are on the annual test, and help us to discern if there's anything happening, you know, around the home that can be an issue, in and around the home. Oops. It's not clicking. Okay. Oh, I clicked that. That's interesting. Did I do both, or did you do one? Yeah, interesting. Okay. Low maintenance grass is best around the wellhead, okay? So that it's low maintenance, it requires low amounts of fertilizer, it has some inherent pest properties already bred into the grass to make them resistant to certain grubs and other kinds of pests that might attack the grass. So that's key. And also, I like to discourage, even though they can be so lovely in a landscape, like I like yard art, but I like to discourage yard art away from the well. So to not use coverings or plants or shrubs that would encourage animals to live, burrow, and dig near the well, okay? So I have worked with homeowners where that has been an issue, and the rodents will or have chewed on wiring in the well, you know, that comes up through the side of the well, and that kind of thing. So just be aware of that can be an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the wood is treated.
The wood may be treated. You're right about that.
Cyanide or arsenic in it, right?
It may. You'd have to, you know, check on that, but that's a very good point. Yes, if you're using something, you know, that's made out of wood. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, so let's look at a couple of pictures of wells and see. I'll talk just briefly about well water construction. Drilled wells. Drilled by machine. Sometimes they're also pounded, which is just a different way of, you know, making the hole in the ground. That's a little, it takes longer to do, so pounded wells tend to be more expensive, but it's a little cleaner construction. It just doesn't, a drilled well will ground the rock and create a slurry that can sometimes move back into the cracks and fractures in the bedrock and clog them. You know, that happened when we drilled our well, and we just had to have it hydrofracted. You know, some high pressure water was put down the well to clean out those fractures and things. So a drilled well is one type of construction. A driven well is another type, second type of construction. This is not into bedrock. This is into the sands and gravels that overlay the bedrock. So sands and gravels can produce more gallons per minute. They can hold, the sands and gravels can hold a lot of groundwater, and they can also readily yield that water to a pumping well. And so you'll notice that, you know, the wellhead here is a 3-inch diameter pipe versus like an 8 or 10-inch diameter pipe here for a drilled well. And it goes down into the sands and gravels, okay? And then this line is the water line running underground below the frost line, bringing the water into the home. You have that kind of thing happening also in a drilled well. That's the water line running into the house that's below the frost line. It just, it wasn't visible in this photograph for the driven well. They're not visible for a drilled well because it's just deeper. Okay, and this particular driven well just has a concrete casing around it. I've seen some driven wells that don't have concrete casing around it. In this instance, the concrete casing is just for protection because it is a little bit more of a delicate construction than this is, and it's smaller, so it's harder to see the components. And so some people will encase it in these precast concrete, okay, the well casings. And then lastly, we have a dug well, which is also cased with similar type of material that this driven well is. And they're much shallower. And when you open up the top of the well and you look inside, what do you see? You see water. You see the groundwater. Okay, so the groundwater is right there. And then you have the water line, again, running under the frost line to the home. Dug wells are, people still put dug wells in certain, if they're putting a well in an area where there's sand and gravel. But a lot of times we see them mostly in older historic properties, a dug well. But if there's plentiful groundwater, sand and gravel aquifers, and they're rich in groundwater and they're, they don't have to go down that far to hit the groundwater table, they're still putting in dug wells in areas, particularly down along the south coast in the beach communities and things like that. I still see them going in. How about up here? Does anybody know? Is dug wells popular, still going in up here? Does anybody know? No? Okay, so what's important with all well construction? The wellhead should be at least 18 inches above the ground. So the top of the well should be at least 18 inches above the ground. That is so it doesn't flood. Okay? Primarily it's so it doesn't flood. And rainwater could get in, underneath the well cap and get in and get into the well. The well cap is on tight and sealed. That's important. Right, it should be properly sealed. I shouldn't be able to walk over to a drilled well and just like pick up the well cap and look down inside. There should be some bolts there that would need to be removed, and the seal should be intact, just as a way to keep, one, prevent water from getting in it, and two, insects from getting in it, or mousy from potentially getting in it. The well casing, the piping, is grouted with a watertight seal. So if this is my well casing, this is the earth, and my well casing is coming up, above the 18 inches above the ground, this well casing should be grouted so that if water or snow were, rainwater were moving down, ponding around the well, it wouldn't be able to travel down next to the well. The seal would help to prevent that. So just to prevent water from moving down along the well and short-circuiting any filtration that the soil could give to that recharging water. Okay, that's the main reason for the grouting of that. The well is located as best we can from potential sources of contamination. Okay. Especially if we're building new or putting in a new well, right? Then we have a little bit to work with. We have a little bit of a template to work with. And again, those of us who have been living in our homes for, decades and the well is already there, if you're citing new activities outside, just, be conscious about where the well is when you're doing that, right? And what is it that you need to, put in? You're gonna put in an underground storage tank, well, maybe you have the opportunity to put it in on the other side of the house rather than on the side of the house that the well is on. Just thinking about things like, what are your options? When a new well is put in, the well driller should be submitting what's known as a well completion report to the Rhode Island Department of Health and the homeowner. And so, and this well completion report has the information like, how deep is it, how many gallons per minute is it producing, et cetera, information like that. Has anybody ever seen theirs, their well completion report? Do you have it? Some of us are shaking their head yes.
How long has that been a regulation?
Well, right now, that's a good question. It's been decades. So it used to belong to the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management was the agency that was in charge of that initially. And now it was taken over by the Rhode Island Department of Health. So years ago, when the DEM had it, my colleague and I, neither one of us had our well completion report. We went up to DEM to get our completion reports. She found hers, I didn't find mine. So, Grace Clancy at the Department of Health has them on file. You can contact her. There's her phone number here. And she would just get some information. She has them filed by town, so that's huge. It's a lot easier to have them filed by town than by year, I think, in terms of finding it. But she would take the information that she needed from you, and she would look for it, and if she finds it, she'd make a copy and either mail it to you or email it to you, PDF it and email it to you, okay? So you have her number. And this is just, a little bit of information on with new well construction, if I was going to put in a new well, what the drilling depths are here. So if the well is yielding 5 gallons per minute, the minimum well depth would need to be at least 100 feet, okay? If it's yielding 3.5 gallons per minute, I'd have to go down an additional 50 feet, or the installer would have to go down an additional 50 feet, et cetera. So the less it's able to, the less gallons per minute the well can produce, the deeper the well needs to be, okay? And I gave you the reference right here for that rule in case you need it. It's on your slide, it's on your handout. And these are cracks in bedrock. They're hairline cracks. They had just put a new development off the road I lived in, and I was taking a walk down there one day, and it's a dead end, and there's about I don't know, maybe 10 houses that are there, and at the dead end, there's bedrock outcrop that they remove the soil, and I could see this, obviously, and there were the cracks in the bedrock, and I was like, this is what these wells are drawing from, right? This is the same kind of bedrock in my neighbor's backyard with the drilled well. They're tiny hairline fractures, right, that the water is moving through and supplying water to drinking water wells. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. You don't often see it.
If you go down Route 102,
Yeah.
on the cuttings that are there, in the winter, you can see the water come through and make icicles.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Good eye. Exactly. If you need to hire a well contractor, make sure they're licensed, okay, and insured, like any contractor, that we work with. And you can double check on the Rhode Island Contractors Registration and Licensing Board website. If you go on there, You just need the contractor's registration number, and you can put it in and make sure that they're licensed and insured, okay? If you need to do that. Okay, a little bit about testing. This is the testing schedule that the Rhode Island Department of Health has put together for us. And they are suggesting, this isn't a have to. The only time there's a have to is when a new well goes in or a property is sold. That's the have to time to test the well. This testing schedule is completely voluntary. They suggested a time frame on which to do it. And so we'll just take a quick look at this. Every year you're testing for bacteria, nitrate, nitrite color, turbidity, which is a measure of how cloudy the water is, chloride, and sodium. So some of the, I'll say, common substances that can be in a homeowner's yard, in our gardening, in our lawn care, in our septic systems, or a product of our septic systems, or from our pets, etc. Sodium and chloride, is there any road salting nearby, or do we do any salting on our own properties, okay, that sort of thing. Every 3 to 5 years, the Department of Health suggests that we do some additional testing. Test for corrosiveness to determine whether or not the water is corrosive and is having any kind of effect on our plumbing. So you'll see a lot of items here around plumbing, like cadmium and lead and copper and iron and zinc, all heavy metals that can be components of our plumbing. Okay, and I do see this. I do see this with Rhode Island private well owners because our water is corrosive. And so it does, it's typically corrosive. I've seen situations where well water is not treated and is also not corrosive. So homeowners do have issues with their plumbing, pipe pitting and that sort of thing. And then also other tests for corrosiveness in addition to pH are these items here too, all of which which are characteristics of the water, okay, and can be present in enough quantity to cause, again, the water to be corrosive. And then we have some other things like iron and manganese, naturally occurring minerals that are not a health concern typically, but an aesthetic concern. Manganese in parts a blackish, purplish tinge to the water, and iron does a reddish, yellowy, orange to red kind of spectrum tinge to the water. Common. Anybody here have issues with iron and or manganese? Oh, so few compared to other potential areas of the state. So every 3 to 5 years, there's that testing that goes on also. I get a lot of calls from people who tell me they have blue-green staining, in their plumbing, and they're having some corrosion in their plumbing, and most typically it's a result of corrosive water, and so there needs to just be some pH adjusting that occurs. And then every 5 to 10 years, the state suggests testing for volatile organic compounds. Compounds that can be in gasoline, hobby chemicals, typically items that have a smell to them. So if somebody calls me and says, my water has a chemical, smells like a chemical, then I would suggest that they have a test for volatile organic compounds, which does a test for it's about 26 different VOCs for which we have standards. And the state lists MTBE separately, which is an additive that was added to gasoline to make it burn more efficiently. But that MTBE is included in the VOC scan, so it's not an extra thing. It's one of the 26. So anyways, so this is the testing schedule, and also testing if you ever notice a change, okay, in the well water. And that I hope you feel like you can give me a call if you need to do that. Also, test for arsenic if you live near an orchard or where there once was one. What does that mean? And beryllium if you live in one of these areas, okay? So the Department of Health put together a nice online tool for us to actually get a better answer about whether I should test for arsenic or beryllium. And so here's the web page to go to, and it will take you here. And I highlighted in red right here. Here's the online tool. There's a link. It's blue. It says online tool. Okay, so you click that. It takes you to this like kind of Google Map thing, utility, where you put in your address, you hit return, and it centers it. This is for this area. It centers it, and green shaded polygons indicate to test for arsenic. So if your address shows up in a green shaded polygon, test for arsenic, and a blue shaded polygon suggests you test for beryllium. Test for beryllium. And you can see there's areas where both green and blue overlap, and you might have to do both. Okay? And again, those would be, like I said, a one and done kind of a thing, because, you know, that's how that works. Other times to test, if the well was flooded, test for bacteria particularly, you know, that would be the one test that I would suggest you test for. And if you notice a change in the color, taste, or smell of your well water, okay, that would be a time to do some testing. That would also be a time you could call me, and I would just take you through a series of questions and help to discern, you know, which tests would need to be done. I would suggest that you do. Okay? So a little bit about testing. You want to test at a state-certified laboratory, and those laboratories are listed on page 3 of Are You a Smart Well Owner? Okay? So these are state-certified. Certified means they're following accepted procedures to do the testing, which are known as standard methods, and they're not allowed to sell you treatment equipment by law, so there's no conflict of interest happening. They're just going to test your water, okay? You can call the lab and tell the lab what you want to have tested for. Okay, and they'll put a kit together for you. Depending on what you want to have tested for, you know, will dictate the number of bottles that you'd need. You will go up, you got to do some moving around, so you got to drive and get the, to get the bottles and the directions and the pricing sheet from the lab. You'll bring it home. You're going to read the directions. I suggest you read the directions first before you even open a bottle, fill it with water, do anything. Just read the directions, get the workflow, and then go through the directions and take the sample. Depending on what you're testing for, you could have like 4 bottles, and so you want to just make sure you know which order you're going to collect those in. You're going to take the sample to the lab within 24 hours, and you want to keep it cold en route when you're taking it. So just, you know, put it in a cooler on ice. The lab will send you the results, okay? And if you have any questions about the results, you can certainly call the lab. And if you want, like I said, if you want interpretation, just, you know, get in touch with me, because the lab won't interpret the test results for you. And for a fee, some of these state-certified labs that are listed on page 3 will come to the house and take the sample for you and take it back to the lab, so they'll save you a little driving time. The Department of Health will not do that. But some of the private labs, you can call them, there's only, 4 on the list and, that are private, and they may offer that service, okay? Yes?
Will the Department of Health get a copy of the results as well?
No, not if you go to a private lab. No, that's between you and the lab. Yeah. Oh, there they are. Yeah. Okay, so estimated costs for testing, it's really all over the board. The private labs can be more competitive with one another, right? In terms of their pricing, they can also be agile in changing their pricing structure. The Department of Health, their pricing structure is set by the legislature. For my whole time doing this job, the prices have never changed. So they seem like they're pretty set in stone. But at the State Health Lab, the annual test, so those items listed under the every year column on page 3, cost you $95. And if you were to do everything, the every year, the 3 to 5 and the 5 to 10, it would cost you $410 at the State Health Lab. Let's see if I have a slide on this. I'm not sure. No. I have a coupon on my website that you can download, and a couple of the state lab of the state certified labs will accept the coupon and give you 15% off of a testing package. I'm sorry I don't remember what the 2 labs are. Currently, I just had one lab, take themselves off of the package deal. But there are 2 labs that will, and you can check that on my webpage, that will accept the coupon. 15% is not bad if you're spending, a few $100s. The Department of Health does have testing regulations that came into effect in June of 2008 that requires testing of new wells and requires testing upon sale of existing homes with a well. In this situation, in number 2, buyers are responsible for the testing. So they're responsible, for the lab. They pay for the testing, and they, because they're paying for the testing, the lab gives them the test results, the buyers. Sellers are responsible to disclose any previous water test results. And then there's the information to go for, if you want to look at these regulations. That's the documentation on those. Yeah?
My question again, if you go to the state laboratory, do they report back to the Department of Health?
The state lab is part of the Department of Health.
So they will, it isn't just between you and the state testing, they will get a copy of what the results are?
They could ask for a copy of what the results are.
Okay.
Yeah. They may even be able to look at the results through their, internal system.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the details of that. But you could certainly call my colleague Shannon at the health department and ask her that question if you were concerned about, what the details are. Yeah. A little bit about home water treatment. I'm not going to talk a lot. I have this slide about it because there's all kinds of configurations around treatment. We often, test and talk before you treat. So have the water tested, know what the issue is before you go shopping for a treatment system. So you get a treatment system that's going to take care of what you need to take care of, what needs to be taken care of. So I can help you answer some of those questions, and so can the tip sheets on my webpage. Just briefly, there's 2 different kinds of treatment. There's point of treatment, where the treatment is installed at a particular point, where in this case, I have this activated carbon filter on this faucet, and it's this faucet only that's being treated by that activated carbon filter. Makes sense, right? The way you see it here in the photograph. And then there's whole house treatment here, which is all the water coming into the house is being treated by these two kinds of systems. One, a sediment filter, which is there just to do that, to filter out any sediment or rock particles or things that are moving, underground, that get into the well, that maybe come up through into the house, and they get filtered out by the sediment filter before running through any other treatment that you have after that, and running through the plumbing in your house, keeping them out of your plumbing and out of your appliances. And then this is a water softener, used commonly in Rhode Island, even though it's known as a water softener, to treat for iron and manganese, two commonly occurring minerals, as I said earlier. And a water softener is the common treatment device installed to take care of that, okay? And here's a clear version, the next slide. You can't see through it. I'd like to be able to see what's happening in there a little bit, because I said it's a sediment filter, and settles out, filters out particles. But the other thing that it does is is that iron and or manganese, these two commonly occurring minerals, will also come out of solution and stain the filter like a reddish color if it's iron, a blackish, purpley, bluish color if it's manganese. And I find that helpful because it is an indication for me to change my filter when it gets red, in my case. So some people think it's there to treat iron, and it does do a little treatment for the iron and manganese, but that's not the intent of this filter. The intent is to filter out sands and gravels and things like that. All right, I got to give you homework. That's what I got to do. So here's your homework. Learn about your well. See if you have your well completion report. If not, see if you can get it from Grace Clancy. Learn a little bit of information about your well if you don't have that. Protect it. Do your best to keep pollution away. Properly use, store, and dispose of household chemicals. Make sure any new well is properly sited, working with, a registered well driller. And seal any unused well so that it's not a direct conduit, to our groundwater system, to your groundwater system. Do the best you can to follow the well testing schedule, and act. Call or email me if you have any questions. Call or email the Department of Health, Shannon, if you have any questions, and we're here to help you. That's what I got. Thank you so much. I'm happy to entertain questions if anybody has any. Something I didn't answer that you just are, for those of you, we're going to have some refreshments and things like that, but I understand, we all have, a schedule and that sort of thing. So feel free if you need to go to do so. But I'm here to have to answer questions and yes.
Yeah. So if you have an old property that has a dug well and you want to put an artesian well on, a lot of times in this town, putting in an artesian well is a bit of a lottery because you don't know how far you have to go down. I know people have gone down 700 feet and still not get enough water through. Sorry. No, it's okay. So can you have two wells?
Yeah, you can have two wells. I know properties who have two wells.
So you don't have to ask for an enlargement to the original well. You can put a second well a distance away from your dug well and then have both water sources at your house.
Yeah, and they may also be able to just be plumbed and connected, right? And have one water line come into the house.
You can do, okay.
Yeah, you'd have to work with a contractor. I would call contractors and just ask these questions and see if they've done this work before.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What do you think about what happened at the elementary school?
I don't know what happened.
They had two wells. One had contaminations of small, I think it was plastic particles that were above a certain level. The other was below. They mixed the two wells in order to get it below the accepted level. What do you think of that?
Well, I have no comment on that. I don't know enough about the background of that, nor do I have any experience with that sort of thing happening. So I'm not going to off the cuff address it.
One more question.
Oh.
Sorry,
Radon?
radon.
Radon in well water?
Yes.
Yes, radon can be in well water. It's in our granite bedrock. And there's a standard, there's not a standard for radon in water, but there's a standard for radon in air. So the first thing that and I have a tip sheet on this if you want it, we'll pull it out for you in writing. It's also on my website. So the first thing to do is test for radon in air. And if it's above the level of the standard, which is 4 picocuries per liter, that's how radon is measured in picocuries per liter. If it's above 4, then it's recommended that you treat your indoor air for radon to bring it below 4. Okay? If you have a well, you should test for the radon in the water because the water can be contributing to the radon in air as it gases off when you're running your water, right? Laundry, shower, dishes, whatever. And so the water may also need to be treated, and when the treatment system goes in, the treatment professional should be able to plumb them together so that both are being treated and they're using some common components that both the air treatment and the water treatment need.
Right.
So you can grab my tip sheet on that. When we finish, I'll pull it out for you.
It wasn't on your list, so is it very expensive to test for radon?
I don't remember what it costs to test for radon. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, because there's no standard for radon in water.
Right.
So there's nothing to compare it to. That's why it's not on the list. And do you know that I've been saying that for my entire career, that they've talked about setting a standard for radon in water, but it's never been set. So that's how we talk about it in Rhode Island. Some states can set stricter standards than the feds can. And some of the New England states the other New England states have set standards for radon in water. I don't have them in my head. I have them sitting on a piece of paper in my office. If you want to call me, we can talk about that. But the other New England states have set standards for radon in water. Rhode Island has not.
That's in New Hampshire.
Oh yeah, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. Yeah. The other New England states. Yeah, good. Question? We're going to have you speak in the mic. Yep. There's people online.
You mentioned that the labs don't interpret the data or the results, so how does one find out what they really have?
Call me.
You want every citizen, well owner in the state to
They
call
all
you?
They all don't call me. Yeah. You can call the lab and ask your question, right? And they may talk to you about it. But typically they do not they don't interpret the test results for you. And they'll send you to me. That's been my experience. And so you're welcome to start with the lab, and then you can also call me. A lot of people, what people will do is just email me their results, and then I'll take a look at them. If it's really simple and there's no issues, I'll just email back that. But if there's things to talk about, then I'll email that. Let's have a phone conversation. When's good for you? I'll give you a call.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're not bothering me at all by doing that.
You mentioned the filter to take out like gravel with manganese, rust, iron. Will that filter also remove dissolved solids?
Total dissolved solids. That one that I showed you, that little cartridge filter? Yeah, no.
Is
No.
there a filter that does?
I'd have to check on that, what kind of treatment for total dissolved solids. Yeah, it's just not popping up, to the top of my head, but we can look into that, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I probably have a tip sheet on it in my book over here. So I'll pull out, if you want copies of the tip sheets, you can just, at the end of the program, I'll pull all those things out for you.
Spoke about the proximity of different animals and those kinds of things and closest to the street. What about plants all the way around the well
So,
cap?
so,
We have a lot of different
you know,
plants.
I'd be just cognizant about like how you're maintaining those plants, you know, like are you fertilizing
Yeah.
them or putting any other kinds of, you know, lawn type chemicals or garden chemicals on those plants? And I would just see if animals were nesting around them or not. I mean, there is the potential for that to happen, but I would just look and see. You'd be able to, you know, see if there were animal clawing burrows, you know, hanging out in there.
Another thing about proximity, we live downhill, like we are kind of at the bottom of the hill, but we're on the lower part of the hill.
In your neighborhood?
In our neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, do we need to be concerned about runoff from our neighbor's septic system, or even like we live off of an area, there's a lot of trucking business. It's not that close, but it's within a half a mile.
Probably
Do we have
not.
to, probably
Do an
not?
annual test. When's the last time you did an annual test?
Guilty,
Okay,
okay.
so let's be innocent. No, I'm kidding.
Um,
Really do an annual test, because that's going to help you to discern if the well is susceptible to surrounding land uses, you know,
Okay.
trucking kinds of products like that. You know, again, it's volatile organic compounds. They're going to have an odor. They're going to have a
yeah,
smell.
we don't have a smell.
And then, you know, being downhill from your neighbors, you know, we're talking about things like maybe septic systems, lawn and garden, not lawn and garden care, but, you know, sodium and chloride, the things that's on the annual test.
Okay. Just one other question.
would start
The
there.
same question about the little not septic, the sediment collector.
Yeah,
Is that self-maintained? You take it out and dump it out? I mean, how does it work?
so it
does
unscrew, you
I mean,
turn
it
the
must fill
water.
up, you unscrew it and
Yeah.
clean it out, okay.
Oh, no, it doesn't fill
No?
up. It's always filled with water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's always water moving through it. Not always
But
moving
doesn't the
through it, but
sediment-
when the water's running,
Se-
the sediment just drops out because it's in the water.
Right,
Yeah.
but doesn't it collect?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but usually there's not that, if there's that much sediment, then you probably have other issues happening with your plumbing also. Like if it were to fill up with sediment,
Yeah,
the
Well,
best
no.
the best thing to do is to change it if it is discolored. Or if you notice a lot of sediment building up in it, then you can certainly, that would be a good
I just
time to
noticed
do it.
it-
I just get little bits of sediment in the bottom of it.
okay, because I
Anybody
would
else
get
get-
some in the washing machine,
You've got it some in the
tubes.
wash
in
machine?
the tube, you know, like in the back where it comes into the
Yeah,
washing machine. There's
yeah.
a little filter cap,
Yeah.
and sometimes, and that, I used to get clogged.
Yeah, then I would just get a routine. I would get a routine about when it is, and if you have a clear housing, that's a good indication, you know, that would help you to see if there's a buildup. Yeah, of course.
Hi.
Hi.
I had a couple of questions. One, the big thing on the news these days is PFAS, which I think is what was mentioned in the elementary school.
Which is
Uh,
what?
It was mentioned when he suggested the elementary school
Mhm.
diluted some wells.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a test for PFAS, or is it completely separate?
It's not on the schedule, right, that we talked about. It's not on the schedule. You can test your well water for PFAS. It's going to test for the package for the PFAS testing. I had mine done at the Department of Health. Okay, you can also do it at one of the private state certified laboratories. And it's going to test for about 26 different PFAS compounds. I did it for a couple of reasons. I did it because I wanted to see what the process was, so I could talk about it if somebody asked me, right? What the process was, and it's not an involved process, but it's more involved than doing an annual test in terms of the directions and the do's and don'ts, the things you can do and can't do, like you can't stop for gas when you have the PFAS bottles in your car, and stuff like that. So I just wanted to, you know, to go through that process. But the Department of Health has not come out with any suggestions or to say, you know, test for PFAS every year. Test for PFAS, you know, once every, 3 to 5 years or something like that. You know what I mean? They have not, they haven't given us any guidance yet about what we should be doing. So I don't have any to give you. And like I said, it is an expensive test, so I understand that. And like I said, I did it because I wanted to know what the process was, and if I had PFAS in my well, I'd be scratching. The only source would have been my septic system, which is on the other side of the house.
So
So-
it wouldn't just move through the aquifer? It
It-
would be your own septic system?
I'm sorry?
The PFAS wouldn't come through the aquifer into your well? It would only be from your septic system?
Well, there's no other sources of PFAS where I live.
Oh.
You know, like, you know, I don't live there wasn't a firefighting foam used in a nearby vicinity. I don't live in an industrial area where PFAS might have been used in production of products, that sort of thing, you know. I live in a rural woodsy area. So there's, you know, if I had PFAS, like I said, it would have been from my septic system, in which case I would be up here saying something different to people, because that would be of concern to me. Like if my septic system, right, for 2 people living in the house has enough PFAS to get into the, concentration to get into the well water, to get into the groundwater and into my well, maybe you should be testing for PFAS, a one and done. So I hope that the Department of Health comes out with more guidance for us, because, like I said, I do understand it's an expensive test.
Yeah, here in North Smithfield, we have a couple of Superfund sites. There's concern about PFAS in the groundwater.
Mm-hmm.
And if you live like less than a quarter of a mile away from those Superfund sites, should you be extra concerned about that?
Yeah,
Or is it
I
just-
might be. I might be concerned. I might be concerned enough to spend the money to do the testing. Yes. But I all know that we have, I know that we all have, a budget, a household
Yeah.
budget, and I understand that. And so, the 15% off coupon that's on my website that like I said, only a couple of the state certified labs will accept now, are for packages. I have not called and asked the labs, would you consider PFAS a package, Would you give 15% off of well water testing on a PFAS test? I'm gonna do that and see.
Okay.
You might
Appreciate
do it too, if you wanna do it, and just ask them if they'll get, 15% is not a huge amount, but it's something.
One kind of off the cuff comment, we drink bottled water, so I've been concerned about our well water for decades.
Mm-hmm.
But we wash our clothes in it and take showers and baths.
Yeah.
Is that still a lot safer than drinking it if it's over some limit?
You mean for PFAS? Yeah.
For any,
Oh,
for
for any
pollution in the
for
well.
any of those things.
Our well was put in the 50s.
Yeah,
It's right under the dining room window. It's underground, it's under the garden,
yeah.
and there's all kinds of issues with it.
Mm-hmm.
But are we being safe by just using it for washing and not drinking?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
if you're not
thanks.
ingesting it, yes, you're welcome.
May
Thank
I
you for the
be
question.
able to ask what PFAS is?
Oh, yeah. PFAS are a large family, it's PFAS, and it's a abbreviation for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. That's a mouthful, huh? Are a large family of man-made chemicals that have been found in drinking water. There's thousands of them. They're used to make items, they're put in clothing to make them waterproof. cookware to make it stick-proof, carpets, upholstery, food packaging. They're just like refrigerators. They're just, they're ubiquitous. And so in the manufacturing process, they've gotten into our groundwater. And so, and they're concerned. They can cause high cholesterol, increase risk of some cancers, including kidney, weakened immune system, lower infant birth rate, and other complications during pregnancy. So, what's the movie? Did you watch the movie? Did anybody watch the movie?
The one about West Virginia where,
Yeah, what was the name of it?
yeah, I can't remember.
Oh,
Anne Hathaway and what's his name?
Yeah, there's a movie about PFAS where it first came, when it first came to light, and the story behind that. And it's very interesting. I don't remember the name of it either, I'm sorry, but it's...
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. This tip sheet, I have a copy if you want it. Okay.
Yeah, the greatest line from that film was drinking the water is like drinking a tire. And that just sticks in my mind about, using tires and for gardening or whatever.
Yeah,
One
yeah.
last question about, how close can a well be to the boundary line of your property?
That's a good question. I'm not sure of the answer of that. I can get that for you. I think that there is something like that it should be so far away from a boundary line, but I'm not sure what that is. Want to send me an email on that question?
I sure will.
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder.
In my own neighborhood, the house that was built next to me had to be a set amount from our well.
How many?
I think it was 100 feet,
Oh.
but I don't remember.
Yeah.
But it
You might be
wasn't
right.
to their property line, it was only like 15 feet to the line.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Oh,
I had to be 30 years ago. My son was recommended to get fluoride treatment for his teeth,
mm-hmm.
and I tested it. I had it tested, and it sounds like the water already had fluoride in
Oh, isn't that interesting?
it. Is
Yeah.
that the case with most of Rhode Island?
Not most, no, not most, but it does exist. It is naturally occurring, fluoride. That's why it's on the 3 to 5 year test, is
Yeah,
to
Doesn't
see.
look like there's a lot of people here with youngsters.
Yeah, yeah.
They used to put fluoride in Cumberland, in very high doses, and I don't think they did it in Slatersville, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And if someone's on fixed income, which some of us might be, the $600 testing might be, and I did this years ago. It's a test you can get at Lowe's.
Yeah, but there are only two things that they do on that test, and it's not very good. I've done the same. I tested one to a laboratory and one from Lowe's, night and day.
It's not a state certified lab, so in my position, I cannot, that's just, I have to say no. I have to say no. I don't know what what the test is that they're running. I think we're going there, and then we can come back. Go ahead.
I've lived in the same house for 58 years.
Wow, good for you.
Had a well put in the 60s. Never had a problem. Across the street was 6 acres of wetland. Well, it's not wetland, it was a hayfield, but very, very wet. It was sold, and at the time, the town said only one house could be built on it because it was so wet. They built 5 houses on that land, and now I have problems with my well. Could it be because of those houses?
Is it quantity problems?
It's,
The amount of water the well
well, I-
produces? What do you mean?
it's like rust.
That's
I've got one
iron.
of those small filters,
Yeah,
and within a week, it's all brown rust.
yeah, yeah. It's probably iron and manganese.
Well, I live on Iron Road.
Yeah.
There
Okay
you
then.
go. But I never
There
had
you
a
go.
problem before.
Right, so it could have been in the excavation and in the construction, heavy equipment is used, things are shaking, things are moving, wells are being put in, things are moving, and stuff starts moving and flowing. And so, you know, a little bit, there was probably change of water flow patterns because these 5 houses were also on wells, right? So it's
One of them I know has the same problem.
yeah, I'm not surprised. The most common thing I work with homeowners on with their wells is iron and manganese.
Is that dangerous?
No, it's just, it's an aesthetic thing. And it can be treated if you want, and
I
so
put that little filter, but within 2 weeks.
that filter, that's just a byproduct of that filter. That's not what I would suggest if you're having reddish staining in your house. There's other types of treatment that you can work with that would help to take care of that issue.
My son said to call a well guy. I am gonna call him
Yeah,
and have it checked because it's getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
Every other week, my son's gotta go down and change it, and it feels like slime. It's
yeah.
rusty.
If you go on my webpage and you have the address there, or if you want to give me a call, or better yet, send me an email and remind me of your issue, and I will send you the information that I have, direct links to the information about iron, manganese, and the treatment of, iron, and the treatment of iron.
I'll have to get that big system, you think?
I don't know, but at least you would know what your options are.
Yeah.
There's options.
Yeah, you should tell her the test first before she calls the well.
I did.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, the
Yeah.
testing is the most important.
Yes.
How is the well man's gonna make you test it anyway?
Yeah, no, have it tested.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
son's gonna do that for me.
Good, excellent. Thank you. Good luck, and don't hesitate to reach out. Or have your son call me or email me. Be happy to work with him.
Hi, I just wanted to ask one quick question. How
Please.
current does the test have to be if you're selling your house?
That's a good question, but it has to be pretty current. It can't be like 5 years old. Yeah, I'm not sure of those details actually, but you know, I bet there is in the belly of the regulation somewhere. It does say that. If you want to send me an email, I'll look for you for that. I don't know right off the cuff. It's an excellent question, though. Yeah, you're welcome.
The answer to that is it depends on the mortgage company.
Does it?
Whoever's lending the
Really,
money.
you know that?
Whoever's lending the money, make the decision. If you
Oh,
get-
that's
If you have a good
interesting.
test, you know, and you can
Of
show it
course.
to your buyers, it's okay.
Yeah, great, thank you. Wow, great. There you go.
So you said the well installer has to, or the wellhead should be like grouted and sealed. Does all like certified well installers do that?
Yeah, they
automatically?
should, if they're installing the well, they should install the well.
That's what I-
Yeah, absolutely, yes, yep. And you can ask them that. Are you having something installed?
We're building a new house.
Oh, yeah, so talk to them about it, like, what do you do as part of the installation? Do you grout it, seal it? They should be, yeah,
That presentation I plan.
okay, good, good, thanks. Thanks, everybody. Wow. Thanks, everybody at home, too. Call me or email me if you have any questions. And thanks. Oh, did I mention this? This was on your seat.